I kind of want to backtrack for a minute and talk about the comprehensive law movement generally, because back in '98 when when David Wexler and Bruce Winnick and I were talking about, and Mike Perlin and some other people were talking about, this is a movement, and it's therapeutic jurisprudence and collaborative law and restorative justice. And then I started, I don't know how exactly, I think it was probably through the therapeutic jurisprudence people who really brought all of these different emerging disciplines together. But I'm still trying to collect all of the different vectors of the movement, and sort of since then I really became enthusiastic about having a mission of synthesizing these vectors into a movement, because my idea was that if they could realize, if all the various disciplines, and I still call them vectors, if all the various vectors could realize that they were all part of a greater movement, and that the movement had some unifying themes, that everybody in that movement wanted to practice law in a way that made people better at the end of the interaction with the lawyer, that made the legal matter better, that didn't, at the very least, did not decimate people's relationships, their emotions, and their well-being throughout the progression of a particular legal matter. But that everybody had that same goal in mind. Not that that was more important than legal rights, but that you could accomplish legal rights, the protection of legal rights, at the same time as helping people at least thrive and do well, if not get better, and have a better life at the end of a legal matter. And that and the fact that we were looking at more than just simply legal rights, so that what we beat out of everything but legal rights in law school, and now in the comprehensive law movement we're saying, remember all that stuff that you put on the back burner in the first year of law school that we told you was irrelevant, like emotions and relationships and what your gut tells you about people, all that stuff. Now we want you to bring that back in, because now that's important, because you're going to be a better lawyer if you'll practice law this way. I've been teaching comprehensive law practice at Florida Coastal at my law school since 2001, and I've taught, I think, 7 classes. I don't know, I can't count, but I think 7 years worth of classes, and the classes are just amazing. I mean, I teach half theory, half skills. The students are introduced to every vector of the movement. We cover, and I want to go through the vectors because you probably have done this, but we cover therapeutic jurisprudence, we cover preventive law, we cover holistic justice, we do creative problem solving, we do procedural justice, which is a social science, it's not really a movement, but a social science set of information and wisdom. We do a little bit on practices that support the practice of law, like mindfulness meditation. Then we move to dispute resolution, and we do collaborative law, we do transformative mediation, restorative justice, and within restorative justice we cover family group conferencing, circle sentencing, victim offender mediation, and we talk a little bit about reparative probation boards, but we actually simulate those processes in class. And then we talk about problem-solving courts, unified family courts, mental health courts, and drug treatment courts. I mean, that's an enormous amount to cover in 1 semester and 3 credits. But we do all that, and not only do we talk about it and watch videos and see people doing these things, but we also simulate them in class and try to have some feel for the dynamic of what happens when you put people into a process that's different than the courtroom, than litigation. And the learning and that has happened in that class, and the growth and the eye-opening that's occurred in that class for me and for them has just been incredible. And this year it was just beyond my expectations, just beyond my expectations. So I want to say that, and I'm not the only one teaching that class. David Wexler teaches a similar class was at University of Arizona and now at University of Puerto Rico. Bruce Winnick teaches a class very similar to that at University of Miami. Stella Rabo has taught a class like that at Seattle University. Nancy Dowd at University of Florida is starting a collaborative law class. So there are classes and clinics in law schools all over the country that are springing up, and they're not growing very, very quickly, but they're growing steadily throughout the country. And people are calling me saying, oh, we know you have this class, and we want your materials and we want your information because we want a class like that. So we know there are classes on restorative justice, plenty of classes on those, conflict resolution, clinics, but therapeutic jurisprudence. Now there's becoming classes on collaborative law. I mean, it's just very exciting that law school is changing. And law school, I want to talk a little bit about law school in general is changing to recognize that and it's going to, I think it's the things that are happening in law school that are changing like this are going to meet the changes that are happening in the legal profession. So we've got the comprehensive law movement here happening in the legal profession. We've got legal education changing, realizing that it has to become more humane. It's got to incorporate morals, values, human interactive kinds of competencies. It's got to include, we're talking about emotional intelligence skills in law school. I mean, they're going to meet. You know, these two movements are going to meet, and then there's going to be even greater synergy, because we're going to realize that in the legal profession we're going to really be different lawyers when this whole change has occurred. So one of the things I wanted to say, since you have me, is just letting people know that you're not alone, because as you know, as a solo voice in one metropolitan area or one small metropolitan area, as one lawyer perhaps in a jurisdiction where you practice and you think to yourself, I want to practice differently, I want to do something differently, I want to, you know, I want my experience with my clients to be meaningful for them and for me, and to be positive and to mean something in my value system, and then feel like there's no one who supports you. That is not the case, because I have the luxury as a professor to go all over the country, to go to other countries, I went to Italy last summer, I went to Canada, you know, I went to Ireland this summer. The Therapeutic Jurisprudence conference is being held in Puerto Rico. It's all over the country, all over the world. There are people that think the same way, that are developing these things. And through the internet and through teleconferencing and other technological means, we've been able to support each other and, you know, talk about what people are doing, and realize that and stay enthusiastic and stay encouraged, because there are so many people that are thinking along the same lines, and just to independently of each other, which I think is that amazing thing, is that you meet people and you realize we've been thinking the same things, we never met each other and never had any interaction with each other. So the other thing that's amazing too is that other countries are in some ways ahead of the United States. And when I do travel out of the United States and I talk to people in other countries about some of these ideas, restorative justice, collaborative law, comprehensive law movement kinds of ideas, they are, I think, a little bit bemused that we have trouble accepting these ideas because they're so obvious, perhaps, to some folks in other countries. So that might be something for us to think about as well. Early on, one of the criticisms was for therapeutic jurisprudence is, all you're talking about is just good lawyering. All we're talking about is just doing what any good, well-seasoned lawyer would automatically normally do. And that may be the case, but they may not have the nomenclature to have the words to know what to say to explain what they're doing. And they certainly don't have that framework that I can, as a professor, take to law students and say, this is how you practice law, here's some words to tell you how to do these things that well-seasoned, well-experienced, fantastic lawyers do. So it's useful to have that. If that's the criticism, maybe we're going to come all the way back full circle, and by the time we're all done with this change, everybody's going to say, oh, well, all that stuff you talked about is fantastic and we like it and it's what we want to do, and we're just going to incorporate all of that into the standard of practice for all lawyers. And all lawyers are going to, as a matter of course, take into account all of these non-legal factors that you've laid out in the comprehensive law practice, the comprehensive law movement, and we're going to have all these different ways to resolve disputes outside of court, and we're going to have all these different processes available to us, and it's all just going to be part of normal good lawyering. And won't that be fantastic?